Hey all, it is Sarah Saxby, your transformation coach at Strategies for Happiness, author of Comfortable Hell, and also your guide to a new way forward. And today, I never really know where I'm going with this, but when I go for a run in the morning, it's like whatever comes to my head. And I thought I would talk about how sexual abuse and the financial abuse sort of intertwined in my relationship, and just tell you the example, and then something that came up during that time that I like posed this question to him and sort of stopped him in his tracks because it was really good. I don't know where that came from, but I said something to him after this abusive situation that really was interesting. So I hope you'll enjoy this. Sadly, there's a lot of us that can relate. But anyway. So I've mentioned before that, in a narcissistic relationship, it's not like you're a separate human being. You're literally like this thing that's just an extension of this person. So he doesn't see you. And remember, I'm saying he and she because this is how it fits for me. But he doesn't see you as this separate entity that has their own life, their own needs, their own money, their own desires and things like that. Like you're literally just an extension of him that serves him and his needs. And the saddest part, the most frustrating thing about that is that this person will never, ever, no matter what kind of therapy, it's like the chances of them ever seeing it differently are so slim. And I'm living proof. But so mind you, in the sexual part of the relationship, we couldn't go more than 2 days without having sex. And I honestly can tell you that I do not think in the entire relationship we went more than 2 days, because if we go a day, if we go one night without having sex, the next night it was assumed that there was going to be sex of some sort. And I was going to desire it and initiate it and all that stuff because that was what he wanted. And, if there was ever a time that I would say, it was a second night and I would say, I'm not in the mood. And that's when he would lose his shit and go crazy. And I feel like I'm kind of combining two. There's so many things I want to say. So like this one night I remember, and I recorded, I have a video of it. I literally have a recording of what happened because I turned it on because I knew something was going to happen. So it was like the second night of not having sex and I said, I'm not in the mood. And he literally he had this, I forget what it's called. It's when a narcissist has like this huge blow up tantrum. I know there's a word for it. But he literally, the minute I said I'm not in the mood, he said, what am I supposed to do? Just sit here and jack off? And so I got up and it's just the whole video. He's just following me going, you want to be mature? And he's just yelling at me. So this is what happens when I would say that I didn't want to do it. So I could either do it or this is what happens. I would get yelled at and screamed at and chased around the house so I recorded it. So I literally have proof that does happen because of course I have to prove it that I'm not crazy and this shit happened. So keep in mind that's one thing. Moving on to another of the financial piece. And this is how he made sure he always was invited to do things with me. Like I could never go out with a friend or friends to dinner. He always had to go, he would say, why wouldn't you want me there? Or you don't have the money to go. But if we go together, we have a fund for that. We have a budget. Because I don't have my own money, right? So because he didn't see that, he's like, you don't have the money to do things on your own. What are you talking about? So basically, my kids, they all play soccer. And this was a long time ago. So my son was still playing travel. And, when you play travel for your city, you don't really go anywhere. But at this time, they had like a tournament in 2 hours away. And mind you, my girls were still little. They weren't really doing any traveling or whatever. And there was a travel tournament in 2 hours away, which is no big deal, right? And I love the parents, and I was so excited. I wanted to go, and I wanted to spend this time with my son, and I wanted to go spend time with the parents. And he said, well, you can't. And I was like, why? He's like, well, you don't have money for that. And I said, why can't we use the vacation fund? And he's like, well, because you're not inviting me. He said, if you invite me, then we can use the vacation fund, but you are not inviting me. And I was like, well, I literally was a little girl crying on my bed because I was like so sad because this is how my life was going to be. I couldn't do things unless it was with him because I didn't have the money. And it makes me really sad to even think about it right now that I put up with this fucking bullshit. So I remember crying and I brought it up again. And I was like, I want to go to this tournament. Like, I want to go and I want to spend time with my child. And he's like, nope, whatever. And he's like, all right, I'll tell you what. And trust me, this is verbatim. He said, we can go. He's like, but it's only if I'm invited. And he's like, and then at some point during the 2 days or the 3 days, whatever it was, he said, you have to get your son out of the room so you can either give me a blowjob or we can have sex. So I had to come up with something and tell my son like, oh, you'll go swimming. And I actually had to do this. I had to do this. So what do you call that? What do you call that? And why would I fucking do that? That's the only way that I could go on this tournament and have fun or whatever was, A, I had to invite him because all of a sudden we had the money if he was invited. And I had to offer some sort of sexual, whatever, get my son out of the room. Now, isn't that like prostitution or like, what do you call that? So that happened, and that happened a lot, like that sort of thing. So flash over, let's go back over to the time where, if it was more than 2 days without having sex, I would get yelled at and, berated. So like, what do you do? What would you do? Like, honestly, if you, every night of your life, so you feel stuck, you can't leave because you're paralyzed and you can't do anything. You can't move, can't leave the house, can't do anything. I mean, do you just have sex and shut him up? Or do you just like not sleep that night because you're going to be yelled at the whole time? So, so after, the one time, like after he told me, he went nuts and screamed at me, because I said I wasn't in the mood. And mind you, I don't think our entire relationship, we went more than maybe 3 days without having sex. The whole time, because I couldn't. So that one time that he yelled at me, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, if your daughters had a boyfriend and one of them, say one of your daughters called you and said, Dad, my boyfriend just literally yelled at me because I said I wasn't in the mood to have sex. And he was screaming at me and he was following me and I couldn't sleep and he yelled at me for 4 hours straight. And he was telling me that I'm not meeting his needs and I need to, desire him. And he's like, and she was like, Dad, we just literally did it like 2 nights ago and I'm just not in the mood. I don't feel good, but he's yelling at me. And I said, what if she did that? I said, what if her boyfriend treated her like the way you treat me sexually? I mean, among other things. I said, would you be okay with that? What would you tell her? You'd be okay? You would say, well, you just need to put up with it. He's right. And, he didn't really say anything. And I said, seriously, if she called you and told you that her boyfriend was literally screaming at her because she didn't feel well, had a cold, whatever it was, didn't feel well, you would be okay with him yelling at your child the way you yell at me? You would be okay with that? And he was like stammering, she should be living, she should be like satisfying like him or whatever. I said, let me ask you again, you would be okay with him yelling at her for her not feeling well and saying, I'm not in the mood for sex? And he didn't fucking say anything. How do you answer that question? But it's going through that, narcissistic, psychotic, shit filter, and him trying to have feelings around it, trying to, and you're only going to get logic with a narcissist. They're only going to try, it's like they have to do math to try to figure shit out because they don't have no feelings. So it's like this mathematic equation to try to figure out how I'm feeling about it. Well, I guess I can understand. They don't get it. They don't fucking get it. And so, no, you know what? I said, you know what? You would be in your car over to that house and you would beat the shit out of her boyfriend for talking to her like that. That's exactly. And I said, so why do you treat me like that? Why is it okay? You know what? It's not okay. And yes, I did put up with shit even after that. I still stayed. I fucking stayed even after that. And, I just, it's like 50 years of me learning to not, to know that I'm better than that, to know that I'm worth more, that I'm treated like a fucking rag doll, like nothing, like shit. And I'm so much better than that. I have so much more to offer. So anyway, I'm sorry if you all have ever experienced anything like that, but I'm here to tell you that you are worth so much more. And it's time for you to put your foot down and start seeing it for what it is. So if you do need to record it. But listen, start making moves because you're way better than this and you are worth it. And you are amazing because you're here and you're breathing and you're worth someone just adoring you. So, there's that. So thank you for listening. Please comment. Let me know if there's anything that you all want me to talk about, because I'm sure I have experienced it. Give me some ideas, because I'm happy to share my wisdom on it and guide you to a new path forward. So thanks, guys. Stay strong. Love y'all. See ya. Bye.